There's a big difference between belief and knowledge. I would say that I believe in Papua New Guinea. I believe it's over there. I haven't been, but I believe in it. I wouldn't say I believe in my brother, because I know the guy.
This implies that the evidence of the existence of Papua New Guinea that is available to someone who has never been there is analogous to the evidence of the existence of God. Where are the satellite photos of God?
Now, one of the most important scientific discoveries of the 20th century is that this notion that the universe is forever is factually false. The universe is not forever. The universe had a beginning. In physics, it's called the Big Bang. In a sense, first there was nothing, and then there was a universe.
There was nothing? Where? Where was there nothing? Without a universe, there's no there to speak of. There is literally no there there. It doesn't even make any sense to say that there was nothing. This is a mistake that I've heard apologists make over and over again. They think of the Big Bang as though it was an event in which a state of nothingness transformed into a state in which the universe exists. This is a reification of the idea of nothing. It doesn't even make sense to speak of a state of nothingness. Nothingness is not a state. We don't need to explain how the change from nothingness to existence occurred, because no such change ever occurred in the first place. To say that the Big Bang was preceded by nothing is not to say that there is this thing called nothing that existed before the Big Bang. Rather, it is to say that the Big Bang was not preceded at all.
Now, if you think about this for a moment, this idea that first there was nothing and then there was a universe actually was stated before the scientists figured it out. The writers of the first book of Genesis, a bunch of Hebrews, or Jews, they said, first there was nothing, and then there was a universe. And interestingly, these ancient Hebrews, if you ask them, well, did you do any scientific experiments to figure it out? They would say, no, we didn't do any experiments. God told us. This is how it happened. And you might say, well, yeah, but this is common to every other religion. They say the same thing, but actually, no. In most other religions in the world, the idea is that a god, or sometimes gods, fashioned the universe from some other existing stuff.
Which makes a hell of a lot more sense. Apologists often balk that atheists believe that the universe popped into existence out of nothing and that this makes no sense. I agree that it makes no sense, but that's not what I, as an atheist, believe. I don't believe there ever was nothing. The idea that something came from nothing is what Dinesh D'Souza believes. He believes that a god made something come from nothing.
So my question to Dan Barker is this. If God didn't make the universe, who did?
The universe wasn't made. The universe began at the Big Bang in the same sense that a yardstick begins at its first inch. A yardstick isn't created at its first inch. It doesn't pop into existence at its first inch. That's just where the edge of the yardstick is. Just as something can have a spatial edge, it can also have a temporal edge.
How did we get a universe? First there was nothing, and then there's a universe. If God doesn't explain it, why don't you do? Why don't you give us the explanation?
You don't have your own explanation, therefore my nonsensical one is completely justified.
Dan Barker cited Stephen Hawking in a rather convoluted quote that, far from undermining what I said, actually supported it. Stephen Hawking is the guy who did equations to show that, yes, the universe has a beginning. And then Stephen Hawking said, when I proved this, I became alarmed because I realized the theistic implications. In other words, nothing can come out of nothing. If there was nothing and then there was a universe, this seems to give support to the idea of a creator. So Hawking said, I'm very uncomfortable with that. I have to try now to figure out a way how this could have happened without God.
D'Souza seems to believe that Hawking thinks the same way he does. Hawking does not argue against the singularity because he's uncomfortable with it. You're a shithead who doesn't understand the science if you believe that.
And Hawking advances a theory which revolves on quantum fluctuations. Now, here's what Hawking says. He says maybe the universe came into existence in what he calls, quote, imaginary time. Is there such a thing as imaginary time? No. Where does the idea of imaginary time exist? Pretty much in Stephen Hawking's imagination.
Stephen Hawking didn't come up with the idea of imaginary time. Richard Feynman did. It is the idea that there is a dimension of time that extends at a 90-degree angle to regular time. It's a way of explaining interference patterns in which particles seem to be in multiple places at once and canceling each other out. It's a parsimonious hypothetical explanation of quantum effects, not something dreamed up by atheists to get around theism. Thanks again for helping me out on Patreon.